Alright, happy birthday, Damien. Arkham reporter. And what's up, guys? He said, oh, we can see you. You see me before. You see me before. You'll see me again. Uh, he basically made a request for a video, like my thoughts on new metal, my thoughts on wrestling, right? And I figured I would play the guitar a little bit, playing some riffs. This is my oldest guitar, the first one I got in 1997 at Buffon Sheridan. It basically a Korean-made Gibson summer hollow body. I didn't realize at the time this thing had thick gauge strings on it already. So I think it was maybe a blues guitar for someone with a large hand. I've never taken the strings off this. This is as it was when I bought it back in '97. It has a nice sound to it. So it's, just messing around with some riffs. We're talking about new metal. So Takedown 262 is going to be my new metal project. So it's not going to be for a while, obviously, but I figure I'd play a little bit. It's just riffs I'm messing with. So obviously the drop tuning, I don't know what the tuning is on this, but it's low, so. That's just the riffs I'm slowly coming up with. Obviously practice, practice, practice. And of course we got the anyway, all messing around. We got right. Yeah, I gotta get that pinch harmonic down. New metal and pro wrestling. Make it clear. They developed around the same time in terms of the new metal wasn't called that until it was like a journalistic term, like hair metal. Okay? The first time I saw new metal was on the cover of I think Guitar One magazine that had Max Cavalera, a Soulfly on the cover. To me, new metal is just a continuation of the '90s metal. Okay, the hardcore bands at the time: Earth Crisis, Hatebreed, Vision of Disorder, Fury of Five, Marauder. They were metal. They were metal bands. Even Madball to me was like metal. It didn't sound like the hardcore I remember when I was a teenager, like Youth of Today. You had a lot of these bands coming from all over the country. Seven Dust, Cold Chamber, obviously Korn. And Korn was the big one, right? These bands were all influenced by like Helmet, Tool, Rage Against the Machine, Prong. Prong is another band that like needs a lot more, you know. Finn McKenty talked about them, but Prong was huge, man. And of course, Sepultura with Chaos AD. So this stuff was coming around, and it was hearing the rap metal coming together. Biohazard, metallic hardcore band, whatever you want to call them, from New York. Biohazard was the first guys to really put rap into that, into the metallic hardcore they were playing. Okay, Judgment Night soundtrack. I think that was '96. Was it 90? No, it was '94. Judgment Night soundtrack. These are the antecedents of what was going to become new metal. In terms of wrestling, pro wrestling, obviously WCW had become a huge thing, corporate backed by Ted Turner. And they were on Monday night, which was traditionally, right, Raw is War. And they were beating the crap out of Vince's WWF. And so the WWF had a secret weapon. They took inspiration from a smaller organization in Philly called ECW, which they had a relationship with. And they started kind of doing a more mainstream version of what ECW had been doing. Okay? Just like the new metal that came out, Linkin Park Limp Bizkit, you could say they were a little more mainstream version of what had been being done in the 90s. So even Slipknot, whereas like System of a Down was being played side by side with Earth Crisis and Godsmack. And I remember the first Limp Bizkit album. The point I'm making is that that time, the internet made it possible for these people, for people to find out about this stuff. And what new metal, the 90s metal and the new metal did was it kind of stripped down a lot of the artifice, okay? Kind of what punk was supposed to have done. Stripped down a lot of the artifice, um, and it made like reality more of a thing. You could say found footage horror is a similar idea. The storylines in ECW were more about the real life politics and feuds that you have within these organizations. Some of the Russes really didn't like each other. One of the biggest villains in ECW was Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas was supposed to be like the next Ric Flair, but apparently Ric Flair, according to him, screwed him in WCW. And then Shane in ECW became this villain who is essentially now a ruthless babyface turned villain. And that was an example of it was a lot more interesting to see this stuff stripped down. I'm not even going to talk about the levels of violence, the weapons, the small venues where guys were literally jumping into the audience like it was a hardcore show or something. So you see these similarities coming in the 90s, and the internet sort of made a lot of it possible. The found footage horror was an internet campaign, made the Blair Witch Project one of the biggest horror films at the time. So you had a nexus point of a lot of things. Okay, I remember the time fondly. I mean, it wasn't a dream time, but man, compared to the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's definitely you could say it's a, I wouldn't say an exclamation mark. I would say those three little dots, what do you call them? To the end of an empire. So, an empire that thoroughly deserves what it gets. But you know what? The art at the time, I hear video game. I mean, I remember a PlayStation coming out at the time, playing it at a friend's place. Yeah, that time, man, late 90s, early 2000s. I was in my, I was like in my 20s. Yeah, yeah, that was a time, and a lot of people want to recapture it, but you can't. You can't. Wrestling, I have no interest in. So obviously, when the competition was destroyed by WWF and they bought it, then you started to see things go downhill. That's interesting. As for new metal was still very popular. I remember in K Rock when they started pushing it off the air and not playing it. And they were playing the Strokes and the Hives, which were a good band actually, and the Vines, which were a good band. But the Strokes, and they were pushing a lot of hipster kind of stuff and a lot of melodic punk. And it was being pushed from above, like a lot of things. So that's my thoughts on new metal and the pro wrestling now. It was fun being there, going for it, man. I went to wrestling shows. I went to metal shows. It was great, man. There was really no rules, man. There was no rules. There was no uniforms for any of it, man. So anyway, Arkham, happy birthday, and we'll keep this alive, man. Later.